Imagine two oxen pulling a cart through a muddy field. The lead ox strains with every muscle, veins bulging, breath heavy. The other ox just ambles. It barely pulls its own weight. The farmer, frustrated, shifts the load. He takes the rope from the lazy ox and ties it to the strong one's yoke. Now the strong ox is dragging the entire cart alone. The lazy one walks beside, free. At the end of the day, they reach the barn. The farmer looks at them, scratches his chin, and says to his son, "Why am I feeding two animals when one does all the work? Give the strong one extra grain, and slaughter the lazy one, we'll sell its hide." And so it was done. Now, you might be nodding. Justice. The lazy one paid the price. But let's rewind. What happened to the strong ox? The story fades to black. But the truth is this: that ox kept pulling. Day after day, year after year, until one morning it was too weak to stand. The farmer, with the same practical logic, looked at the old, spent animal and said, "Why keep an ox that can't pull?" Its throat was cut too. Its hide was also sold. This isn't a fable about hard work. It's a fable about necessity. The lazy ox died because it was useless. The strong ox lived until it wasn't needed anymore. Hard work guarantees nothing. Being necessary guarantees survival. The moment you are no longer needed, your value evaporates. This is the essence of Robert Greene's 11th law from the 48 Laws of Power. Make people depend on you. Create a monopoly on your own utility. If they can't function without you, they won't dare to discard you. But is it that clean? Does this law have a shadow side? Today, we're not just going to explain the law, we're going to dissect it. We'll look at the brilliant victories, the quiet costs, and the fatal traps. By the end, you'll have to ask yourself, is this a game you're willing to play? The first lesson comes from 14th century Italy, from the city of Siena. A massive enemy army descended on its walls. The city's own forces were a joke. Panic gripped every street, men hid, women prayed. The city was hours from annihilation. Then, a mercenary, a soldier for hire named Giovanni, stepped forward. He had no loyalty to Siena, only a contract. But that day, with a combination of cunning and raw courage, he single-handedly broke the siege. He drove the enemy back. He saved the city. Siena erupted in joy. He was a messiah, a hero. The city council convened immediately. How do we reward this man? Gold? A palace? A title? Nothing seemed enough. The debate raged for days. Finally, an old senator stood up. His words were cold. We can never repay him, and if we give him power, he may become our master. So here's my proposal. Invite him to the square, honor him, and then cut off his head. Build a statue in his likeness and worship him forever as our patron saint. The council nodded. And that is exactly what they did. Why? Because his work was done. The enemy was gone. He was no longer a necessity, he was a liability. A living hero demands payment, power, and respect. A statue demands nothing. They didn't kill him out of malice. They killed him because his necessity had expired. He thought his heroism would protect him. He was wrong. It was his utility that protected him, and when the utility vanished, so did he. Now let's jump a century to 1442 to the powerful maritime city of Venice. Count Carmagnola was the most feared military commander in Italy. He was undefeated. Venice hired him to fight their wars against Florence, and he won, again and again. He was their champion. They welcomed him back from campaign with a parade. Flowers rained from windows. Crowds chanted his name. That evening, he was invited to the Doge's palace for a celebratory banquet. As he walked through the corridors, he noticed the guards were leading him down a path he didn't recognize. They crossed a small, enclosed bridge made of white stone. Through its tiny windows, he saw the canal below, and for a moment, he saw the faces of prisoners looking out. This was the Bridge of Sighs, the last view of freedom a convict would ever see. He realized in that instant there was no banquet. There was only a dungeon. The next day, in the same square where they had cheered him, they beheaded him. The hero of Venice was dead because he had won too much. He had become a threat. He was no longer a tool, he was a potential tyrant. His usefulness had created a problem, and the city solved it the only way they knew how. The lesson is brutal. It's not enough to be useful. You must be indispensably useful in a way that makes your removal more painful than your presence. But how do you actually do that? The master of this game was Otto von Bismarck. In 1847, a 32-year-old Bismarck entered the Prussian parliament. He was a nobody. He had no allies. The powerful factions were the liberals and the conservatives. The smart move was to attach himself to one of them. He didn't. He attached himself to the weakest piece on the board, King Frederick William IV. The king was a puppet. Parliament pushed him around. He had no confidence, no real power. Any ambitious man would have avoided him. But Bismarck saw the trap. If he joined the powerful, he would be a tool, used and discarded. They didn't need him. But the king needed a spine. He needed someone to prop him up, to fight his battles, to whisper the right strategies. Bismarck made himself that person. He became the king's strength. When Frederick died, his brother Wilhelm took the throne. Wilhelm despised Bismarck, but he found himself in the exact same position, weak, under siege, powerless, and Bismarck was the only one who could save him. Wilhelm kept Bismarck as prime minister, not out of love, but out of necessity. They argued constantly. But whenever Wilhelm pushed too far, Bismarck would simply say, "Then I resign." And Wilhelm would crumble, because losing Bismarck meant losing his throne. On the surface, this is genius. But look deeper. Bismarck spent 40 years serving two kings he didn't respect. He had no private life. He was constantly alert, constantly guarding his position. He was powerful, but he was also a prisoner. He was dependent on the king's dependence. It's a gilded cage, but a cage nonetheless. Power built on dependency is a two-way street. You own them, but they own you right back. The most elegant example of this law comes from King Louis C of France, the Spider King. He was paranoid, cunning, and deeply superstitious. He kept an astrologer at court. One day, the astrologer predicted, "A lady of the court will die within the week." And she did. Louis was terrified. He believed the astrologer either had real power or he had killed the woman to prove his point. Either way, the man was too dangerous to live. He decided to kill him. He summoned the astrologer to the highest tower of the castle. Below, a moat. The plan was simple. Give a signal, and the guards would throw the man out the window. But before giving the signal, Louis asked, with a mocking smile, "You who know the fate of others, tell me, what is your own fate? How long will you live?" The astrologer paused. He looked at the king's eyes, then at the window, then back at the king. He spoke slowly. "Your Majesty, the stars have revealed a strange truth to me. I will die exactly 3 days before you do." Silence. The king's hand, raised to give the signal, froze. He stared at the astrologer. And then, he laughed nervously. He ordered the guards to stand down. From that day on, King Louis protected the astrologer with his life. He gave him gifts, paid for doctors, ensured he wanted for nothing. Why? Because the astrologer had tied his fate to the king's. To kill him was to sign his own death warrant. He was now indispensable. But ask yourself, did the astrologer sleep soundly? He knew the king feared him, not loved him. He knew the king would kill him in an instant if that one sentence weren't hanging in the air. He had power, yes, but he also lived under a constant silent threat. Dependency is a transaction, not a relationship. So where does that leave us? Today, young men read the 48 laws of power and think they can manipulate their way to the top. They think strategy replaces skill. They are wrong. Bismarck was brilliant because he had the mind to fix a king's problems. The astrologer was brilliant because he had the wit to craft a life-saving sentence. The mercenary was brilliant because he had the sword to win a battle. You cannot make people depend on you if you have nothing to offer. Strategy without substance is just a con, and cons eventually fail. This law is playing out in your life right now. At your job, if you do tasks that anyone can do, filing, basic emails, routine data entry, you are a commodity. You are replaceable. The market will find someone cheaper. But if you are the only one who understands the legacy code, the only one who can calm the angry client, the only one who can fix the machine when it breaks, then you have leverage. Your boss might dislike you, but he cannot fire you. He is dependent. It happens in friendships too. If you are the fun friend who just shows up for parties, you are replaceable. But if you are the friend who drops everything to help someone move, who listens without judgment, who gives advice that actually works, you become a pillar. People need you. But here is the warning, and it's a heavy one. Dependency is not love. King Wilhelm needed Bismarck, but he hated him. Louis Xi needed the astrologer, but he feared him. If you build your relationships, romantic or personal, on dependency, you are building on sand. The moment the need disappears, so does the person. Real love, real friendship, is when someone stays even when they don't need you. They stay because they want you. Don't confuse the two. The Sienese soldier was killed when his necessity ended. The lazy ox was killed because he had no necessity at all. The hard-working ox was killed when his necessity ran out. The lesson is stark. Hard work is good, loyalty is good, honesty is good, but none of them protect you. Only necessity protects you. People may like you today and forget you tomorrow, but if they need you, they will move mountains to keep you. So, ask yourself the hard question. If you vanish tomorrow from your job, your family, your circle, would there be a void? Or would there be a line of people waiting to fill your spot? If there's a line, you are in danger. Your own bridge of sighs might be closer than you think. Build yourself into something they cannot live without, or accept that you are replaceable. The choice, as always, is yours.